HR leaders, what's on your mind these days? Is it AI? Is it the economy? The talent market? Remote work? Retention? DEI? Pay transparency? New laws? Our 2024 Workplace Trends Report outlines how HR leaders are thinking about these challenges and what they believe will help their organizations overcome them. Want to find out what they said? Head on over to peoplemanagingpeople.com/Workplace Trends 2024 and download the report to find out.
Everyone needs to basically, be healthy. We need to provide the tools to become healthy. That's another important thing. So I think this is the most important thing, that as companies, leaders and stakeholders, we need to look after the employees' health in a real terms. It's not just about asking that question, how are you, but actually providing them solution as well.
Welcome to the People Managing People podcast. We're on a mission to build a better world of work and to help you build happy, healthy, and productive workplaces. I'm your host, Tim Reitsma. So let me ask you this. How are you doing? No, really, how are you? What if I said you can't answer with good? So I know here in at least North America, we often reply to that question with good, even when things aren't. The reason I ask this today is we're talking with Anjan Pathak, co-founder of Vantage Circle, an employee recognition and wellness platform, about his approach to employee wellness. There's a common theme to the questions I seek answers to through this podcast. Ask your people what matters to them. One wellness program may not work for your company, but the starting point is the same. Ask. If wellness is an afterthought, man, we're failing. Employee wellness needs to be at the forefront, and Anjan makes the case for how to do this. Anjan, welcome to the People Managing People podcast. I've been following your company, Vantage Circle, for quite some time now, and really intrigued and impressed with what you've built there. And so I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today. We're going to be talking about a holistic approach to employee wellness. But before we get into that, take a minute and share with our guest, our audience, a little bit about yourself and maybe what's top of mind for you these days.
Sure, Tim. Nice to be here, first of all, and thank you for having me. I have seen what you guys do at People Managing People, and it's been great. So yeah, I think we are in the same space, so it'll be nice to have a conversation with you. Also understand your experiences around employee engagement and around employee wellness, employee well-being. All these are topics which are very close to our heart, and it'll be nice to have a nice chat. Okay, so essentially, my background, as you know, I'm from India, basically. So I was born and brought up where I'm here right now. And I was born and brought up here, but I went to UK and worked there for a very long time, almost 15 years. So I'm a technology leader. So I am into the technology space mostly. And so I started my career into programming, and then I worked in e-commerce companies, mostly in the UK. So I spent most of my career in building web-based systems. And that's how I co-founded Vantage Circle as well, along with my co-founder, Partha. So initially when he started, and there was no technical co-founder, so I joined after 2 years. And this is where I started this division, which is right now where we are right now. And so, we started with just me, and now we are about 150 people working from here. So this is the team that, we have built in the past 8 years now. And we are quite self-sufficient in a way. Like, we have got all the kind of, departments in here now, right from technology, operations, sales, marketing, which is another big area. So I look after mostly the technology, the product, and a bit of marketing, the technical marketing side of the whole thing. So that's my day-to-day job.
Well, that's fascinating. You're building a company from an idea to 150 people and growing. That's no small task. So congratulations on that success. I think that's pretty phenomenal. And I know Vantage Circle plays in the employee engagement, employee wellness, well-being space. And so I'm really curious, as we get into our conversation, about how does that translate even into your organization, and what are those fundamentals around employee well-being. But before we get there, I I always ask a couple questions, sometimes for my own selfish purpose, because I think I'm a curious guy, and I really am curious about, from your perspective, what does it mean to be a leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be very honest, I'm still learning, primarily because I come from a technology background. So leadership is not very natural to me. And I must say that when I look back, I don't think I was ever considered to be any kind of leader on any kind of things that I have done before. So I think my advantage is that things are getting more and more technical. So,
Mhm.
so I just try to be myself and just navigate the things from a very technology point of view most of the times. And it kind of works. And over the years also, I think I have kind of learning about this, how to, well, at the end of the day, life has just one rule, I guess. It's just that treat the people the way you want to be treated, right? So that's the only rule I follow. And I just want to be a little bit empathetic along with the other leadership styles, like, be authentic, have decisive power and all these things. So actually, I've got a list of qualities that I wrote a blog also. It's a pretty big list. But at the end of the day, I think it's just, being authentic and just be yourself and listen to people, what they say, and behave as if, you are expected to, behave the way you want other people to be treated. Treat yourself like you want to be other people to be treated in the same way. So these are the things that I look at, and there's nothing really different that I do in my day-to-day job compared to what I was doing when I was not a leader at all. So that's how I look at it, basically, to be very honest.
Well, I love that. I love that principle to live by, right? When you're leading people, because often I've come across many people, I even myself early on in my career is, hey, Tim, you're doing great leading, this side of the business. Hey, do you want to lead a bunch of people? And, me, I say yes to too many things. And so I said, sure. And realized, wow, how do I lead people? This is something new to me. But I love that, is treat people the way you want to be treated. And so be your authentic self. Now, if you want to be treated terribly, you're going to treat people terribly, and you're not going to be a leader for very long. But I would say most of us don't want to be treated terribly.
Yeah, and to be very honest, I also look at it in another way, is that it's not that difficult to be a leader. I think it's very difficult to be a follower. So I really thank the first couple of followers that followed me, because without them, I would have never become a leader. So it's just that, because, and those people now, of course, have themselves become leaders, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is how it's been growing, basically. What I've realized is that, and I was myself a follower for a very, very long time. And I understood what needs to be a leader in a way, what the good leaders were, because I could
Mm-hmm.
see the difference being, in a environment where you were cared for, your leadership really wanted you to do well. So I have grown up in that kind of environment. So I always look forward to people, actually the followers who wanted to follow the first couple of people who worked with me. And at the end of the day, I think they made me what I am today at the end of the day. So yeah, that's interesting as well. It's just, so I think it's very difficult to be a follower than a leader.
Yeah, that's shifting some of my perspective, because that's something, I've read so much about leaders, and leaders lead and people follow. But when we flip that around, I think you're onto something there. It is difficult to be a follower. Especially it's difficult to be a follower and follow somebody that you don't trust or you don't believe in, but yet you still need to follow. It's so much easier to follow somebody that you
Trust and believe. Yeah, definitely.
trust and believe in and would work extra hard for, and the list goes on. So that's an interesting perspective. And I think maybe that plays really well into my next question, which our purpose here in our digital publication is to help people like yourself and people like me build a better world of work. So when you hear that phrase, build a better world of work, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. So first of all, right, I think I'd like to say, what is work in a way, or what is a job? And where does this term called job came from, right? I mean, we come from I think as a human being, we were probably before this concept of jobs, right? We were into the agricultural revolution. So most of us was farmers. And then the industrial revolution came, right? And that's where the concept of job started. So I think the concept of job or the world of work has gone through three different phases of, in a way, you can say, revolution. And the first was industrial revolution, which is probably our grandparents, where the work was very manual, right? Most of the job was very manual. So opportunities were less. So in the industrial revolution era, you had to listen to your boss. There was no other option, basically. Even if they're abusive, even if they're not nice, you have to still just go and do your job, basically, day to day. Because the main reason was getting a job and being paid for. That was the thing that the human beings, we looked at. That was the industrial revolution. There's no social security. I think there's no culture. It was just a manual kind of job that people did during the industrial revolution time. Then came the information revolution, right? The information revolution is where I think I started my job. So at that time, I was not looking for, a day job, or I was not looking to just, have a job where I was paid. I was looking for standard of living. Maybe I was looking for because my parents looked after me, just what I could live by. It was something that most of the things were looked after by my fathers, my parents, basically. So that was the time when we looked for standard of living. So maybe we wanted a vacation, we wanted to probably buy a better car, or we want to have some nice gadgets or whatever. So that was the information revolution, right? So we wanted just a better standard of living, better way of life, basically, right? Now it's different. Now it's a digital revolution, or you can also say a social revolution. So now people are not looking for a standard of life anymore. What they're looking for, the young generation, is the quality of life, right? There's a difference between standard of life and quality of life. And when I look at it, what is the quality of life? It's actually, it's not just a better job, but also better work, kind of where there is a lot of learning opportunity. There is a better environment, your workplace is very nice. There is better rewards, there is better recognition. Of course, there is better pay. And most importantly, there's a lot of learning opportunity. So in the information revolution, right, information was very important. Like learning the work was very important for us. How to do a job or how to do something new. Nowadays, it's not, because nowadays everything is free. You go to YouTube and you can learn coding, right? It's pretty much you can learn anything that you want. So information is not scarce anymore. So you cannot just, say that you don't know this, because, people can learn something very, very easily. So information is not a concern anymore. Or you almost guaranteed that the person who comes in, as long as they are enthusiastic, and most of the people are, because they know what they can do if they learn, on the job. That is there, and the information is there if you want to really learn. And they know also that what other people are doing. For example, all these great leaders like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, they have shown us that if you work hard, then you can really excel in your field. So those knowledge is there. So they're not looking for that. What they're looking for is a quality of learning and the better work opportunity, better recognition, better rewards, better environment. So I think that is where I think we need to look at. That is the better world of work that is coming in, which is to give the employees a better quality of life. It's not just better work, basically, anymore.
I love that. Better quality of life. And I would agree with that. I think it's not the era of our parents or our grandparents where we, I've asked my dad in the past, who was a tradesperson his whole life. And so I asked him, what was his aspiration when he was a kid? And he said he wanted to be a cowboy. He wanted to have a farm and have animals. And so I said, well, why didn't you? He said, well, because my dad was a trades guy, so I'm now a trades guy. And it was just that's what he had to do. But now we look at our generation, the current generation and the upcoming generation, it's that quality of life. It's there's no separation between work and life. It's just life and how to make a good living and how to be able to afford, things to suit our lifestyle, which is a challenge because as business owners, we have to balance. We did a recent podcast about balancing people, profits, and progress. So you have to balance that, but also know that there's this new expectation or this new standard of work. And so Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting age, especially in the next, couple of 2 to 5 years, and see how the world of work does evolve.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think it is going to change massively. And as leaders, I think that's what is the most important thing, because what we have learned, it's not going to work. Or even the way we used to work, it's not going to work anymore. So, I mean, the fascinating thing about my job is that I work with some really young people who have just started their jobs just pass out of college. So their way of looking at life and work is very different than how I used to look at. So it's about being able to listen to them and understand what their aspirations are, and align our business goals according to their aspirations. That is probably one of the most difficult thing to do, basically, for me, to understand the young people's aspiration and the way of life there.
Well, that's interesting. It's a different approach of, hey, here's our business goals. Do you fit into those goals? Rather, I mean, yes, of course you've got your business goals, but hey, up and coming, that emerging leader, emerging manager, or that great contributor, what are your goals? And how can we align that to our business goals versus, hey, here's our goals. If you don't fit, then you're not part of the organization anymore. I'm curious about that. And how does that look at Vantage Circle and within your teams?
Yeah, interestingly, right, we are in the space of employee engagement. So we are in the space where we are actually, trying to give other companies a better quality of life, their employees a better quality of life. So unless we can give a better quality of life to our own employees, right, that is not going to work. So our job itself is basically a place to experiment, what works, what doesn't work. So that is, I mean, there is nothing probably a better place to, start or do a job probably compared to an employee engagement company, because we do experiment with what is coming and what the young people wants, and how to improve the better quality of life, quality of work, and have a nice have a very cordial environment and work. So that is the job that we do. So, and at the end of the day, we have to basically do what we love, as well as implement all those things in our own workplace. So yeah, we do those. We leave those values that we preach to other companies.
That's great to hear. If we heard something different, that would be a whole different podcast and a different topic. But that's a great segue into employee wellness and employee engagement. I know we're talking about just this idea about employee wellness, and let's unpack what that means. What does employee wellness? What are the fundamentals of employee wellness, and what does it mean to you and to your team at Vantage Circle?
Yeah, so at a very high level, right? I mean, I started this company when I'm with Partha, and then we never had employee wellness initially. It's only probably about 5 or 6 years back that we started with employee wellness. And I do have a background of kind of wellness or being fit and being healthy and all these things. So yeah, essentially what I learned over the years is that your life or wellness depends on essentially 3 things, right? What you eat, how much you sleep, and how much you exercise. So these are the macro parameters of of any individual. I'm not talking about employee. That's how your wellness is defined. Beyond that, there is other things like financial wellness, environmental wellness, or social wellness, and all those things. But I'm not looking into those things, but just on the physicality part of the thing. These are the 3 macro parameters. On top of that, you have got things like, we came up with a framework called DREAMS, and it's basically drinking, running, eating, yoga, meditation, strength, sleep. Those, 7 parameters combined, which can define your, wellness as such. Meditation or the mental health is a big part of employee wellness nowadays. Wellness in general nowadays. But what I think about employee wellness, right? Where does it come in basically? What is an employee? Employee is basically a person who works in a company or an organization, right? So if you think about it, right, the way we used to work we used to learn as a group when you were in college. But after that, you start working in a company. And there you spend about, 8 to 10 hours or whatever with a group of people, which you call colleagues. So there is a group thing, right? There's a hard thing that going on there in a company. So unless you have that wellness thing also, there in that herd or a group of people, I think you're going to miss out basically, the most important thing, which is your health. And that is where I feel that employer has a big responsibility to bring employee wellness into the business goals. So employee wellness is nothing but basically wellness in a group, and where you can leverage this whole group of people who work with you basically, compared to an individual wellness. Because the problem with individual wellness is that once you start working, right, unless you go to a gym, you have no friends or to play with, for example, right? So you got to basically start somewhere, and I think the workplace is the best place to have a conversation about wellness, and that's where I think the employee wellness comes in. So it's very, very essential. And when I look back at my own learning over the years, I left college when I used to play a few things, but after that I learned so much from my colleagues. Without those colleagues or without those workplaces where I worked, I'd have probably never learned. I would have never gone into this wellness thing. And I was very fortunate and very lucky to have people around me who were extremely, health conscious. And that's where I learned. So that's where we understood, at least personally, I understood that I think the employee wellness thing is going to be the next, business driver for most of the companies. Because if you do not take care of your employees through employee wellness, you're not going to sustain very long.
I've recorded a podcast recently with a market researcher who was doing some research about this Great Resignation, people quitting their jobs. And out of his data, what he had found was in the sector of people he was looking at, people were leaving their jobs without a backup plan. And so he started to ask, well, why is that happening? And one of the reasons is this idea of globalization. Again, we talk about just the evolution of work. Previously, it was, hey, I'm live in this city or I live in this town, and this is where I need to find a job. Now it's you need a laptop or a computer and an internet connection, and you can get a job around the globe. And so that idea of people are burning out, we know that. The data tells us that. So how do we as an organization then focus and build something that like a robust employee wellness program? Because often I hear it as, okay, we've got an engagement program, we've got a recognition program, and then we've got a wellness program, and they almost sound like they're standalone. But how do we integrate all of these together? And I know, one answer could be, hey, Vantage Circle has a great tool for this. But I'm curious, like, how do we integrate wellness into engagement and into recognition? Because you're right. We need to take care of our employees, not just from a financial perspective, but also from a well-being perspective. So talk us through that. What does that look like to you when we look at that integration?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. Actually, when we started our company, Vantage Circle, we started as an employee engagement company. And in those days, employee engagement meant essentially employee benefits, recognition, and maybe pulse, which is survey basically. So those are the products that were very important part of employee engagement products, suite of products. Employee engagement is a very kind of an umbrella term. A lot of companies fall under employee engagement. But what we have seen recently is that this employee engagement companies, which were primarily doing employee engagement, they are actually now buying companies which are into health and wellness. So it has become such important. There is a company called Reward Gateway, and they bought a company called MoveSpring. MoveSpring is basically totally into health and wellness. So employers are essentially finding out that this is very essential now. It's employee wellness is a very integral part of employee engagement. So it's not like you cannot ignore employee wellness. And why this is happening basically, right? First of all, number one thing is that what happened with COVID and work from home or remote work. Of course, when you are alone, right, the commute, what I used to do, and there was a bit of exercise while doing commute as well. And that went off suddenly. So people started working from anywhere, as you say, everywhere. And the people's connection becomes very loose, right? We started communicating through platforms like Slack or Skype or, Zoom. We have started having video calls. But those were not very good in terms of your overall health and wellness, right? So that is given, basically. We are not meant to work like that. So essentially, employers understood that there has to be something else, So, and one of the things, and the other thing that happened was that companies used to have some kind of health and wellness program running in their premises, but that's no longer there anymore because people are not going to offices. So then they came out with this solution that, okay, let's have some virtual health and wellness programs, right? So I think the essential part of now the current way of doing health and wellness or employee wellness and how you build is basically having virtual, because ultimately everything is virtual. So you have to move employee health as well, or employee wellness also virtual. So employers are looking at right now how to engage the employees, not just at work, because work, when you don't meet or have those smaller conversation, right, you are missing a lot of engagement, because a lot of engagement happens over the coffee or whatever, basically, right? So those things are totally missing now. So we need another way, and those things can happen if you can engage the employees beyond the 8 to 10 hours of work. And one of the things that you can do is probably a virtual health and wellness program. So just to give an example, and of course the Vantage Circle, Vantage Fit is one of those products where you can engage your employees through a virtual health program. And what we have seen is that people do compete. It's a very fun way of being in touch with each other. And it's different from what you do in a day-to-day work. And people like that, basically, just have a bit of fun while just walking. Most of the program is basically based on walking. Number one thing is that only that, okay, engage the employees to, just do a bit of more walking, because at the end of the day, movement is medicine, and movement is what is missing from our, because of remote work. So what we try to encourage is basically, have a bit better movement, more movement through our programs. So I think that at the end of the day, what I think the employee wellness is so important now because of this remote work concept only at the end of the day. So this is going to be an integral part in the future.
I think you hit something that's a couple of themes that are coming up for me, which is the intentionality of a wellness program. So it's great to say, hey, we have this virtual meetup, join if you want, but it needs to be intentional. Whereas you said even at Vantage Circle is, something around walking, getting out there and walking, whether it's virtual and you track your steps and it creates some competition and healthy competition, whatever that looks like, but encouraging your teams and encouraging your remote workforce to get out and connect over something aside from the big project you're working on. Like you said, there's a lot of connection and wellness. I mean, I think connection and wellness go hand in hand. Connection used to happen where you're getting a coffee or you're sitting at the lunch table or, you're commuting, you have connection with people. Now it's you roll out of bed, maybe make a coffee at home, eat some breakfast, go to your desk, sit there for 8 to 10 hours, and then go make a meal, go sit on the couch, and then go back to bed. And often, even for myself, I was finding that I was actually getting pretty miserable. Like my wellness, my mental well-being had suffered. So I had to change. I actually implemented a walking schedule into my remote work life. So every morning I go for a thinking walk, and every evening I go for a commute. I call it a commute. My kids call it a dad walk, but I go for a commute. 20 minutes, I come home. My kids are happy to see me. My partner, my wife is happy to see me, and my head is clear. Because I've been able to create that separation. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's fundamental.
Yeah. And the other thing is that because of COVID, right, it's very essential to basically, now ask this question, how are you? And how are you, it's not just, just how are you, but it's actually health-wise, how are you? Because almost, COVID is not going to go away, right? And I don't know if there is any way to get around but to basically improve your immunity against all the things that are coming. And how are you means that, okay, you need to basically really ask, as an employer, if you're asking this question, how are you? But what are you providing basically? Are you providing anything for your employees so that they can look after themselves? Are you giving any tools? Are you giving any help? So all my, interactions with all my employees now, my colleagues, it starts with that question, how are you? And that I really mean it. How are you doing physically? Are you okay? Are you walking? Are you doing your daily steps? I can't see you, those are the things that I need to really take care of now, because that's part of my, thing that I look after. I look up to that. Everyone needs to basically, be healthy. And we need to provide the tools to become healthy. That's another important thing. So I think this is the most important thing, that as companies, leaders and stakeholders, we need to look after the employees' health in a real terms. It's not just about asking that question, how are you, but actually providing them solution as well along with that.
It's so true. It's how are you, at least here in North America, it's a common greeting. Hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? Good. And as soon as somebody says, I'm okay, then it either leads to a good conversation or an awkward encounter because I wasn't prepared to have that conversation. But as employers, it's so important as employers, as leaders, managers, as well as employees, to be honest. When leaders are asking, we need to hope and that they're asking with the intentionality that we care, because it sounds like people who are listening to this might look you up and say, I got to work for Anjan at Vantage Circle because he cares, which is great. That's what employees are looking for, and the data supports that. Is people leave, it's no secret, people leave bad bosses all the time and continue to look for that great boss that cares. It creates the space for advancement, for learning opportunities, as you mentioned, but also wellness. Are you getting your steps in? I think that's something I'm going to be talking to my team about as a step challenge. And so you've planted some ideas there in my mind. And I'm curious, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, wellness needs to be front and center in our organizations. Often I have heard and I've seen it personally that organizations say, hey, we've got this wellness program, going, spend $500 to whatever wellness you want. Is that enough? Or what could we be doing intentionally to start putting employee wellness at the forefront?
Yeah, first thing is to recognize that it's a very, very important part of the business goals, basically. So it should weave into your overall mission and vision. And leaders needs to be, it has to run from the leaders themselves, I think. So that is the number one thing. So what we would encourage people to do is, like, there are a few elements that you need to really think about when it comes to running a successful program. One of the things to understand is that you're never going to have 100% participation in everything that you're going to do, because we are all different, right? So I think the most essential part is to have that conversation going in the company, right? From leaders to managers to the employees, about wellness. If you're talking about something, it should be centered around health and wellness, at least half of the conversation. And that conversation needs to flow in, that, I mean, if I see from my experience, you can either do things which you can influence others to do better, or you can do the other way around. So I look at it that way, that how I'm influencing other people. And if I do something on my own, which is positive, then only other people will be influenced. So I think this is the number one thing, that it's to have the conversation going on inside the company about wellness. It should be centered communication, and there should be a lot of communications going around, different stakeholders. And there can be also like some kind of champions, we call it health champions, because you need motivation, you need people who are really first movers and they're going to buy into your program. So those are the things that you can do, and it should be fun and social and all these things. And you should never always look for 100% participation. The other thing is that you should always discard that 10% of the people who are anyway healthy, right? They always go to the gym and everything. So you don't need to really attract those people. Ultimately, and you'll never be able to attract those people anyway, because they are already looking after themselves properly. It's 90% of the people who are not aware. So if you can target something which is going to be at least, have that as the target audience of 90%, but you can have at least 50% of the, engagement or from those people. And I think you're probably going to be running a successful health and wellness program. So it's very important that you have a goal, like you have a yearly kind of plan, what you want to do, and you have a goal and you want to track it, and you want to see basically how you're doing. You want to A/B test. We call it A/B testing, because again, you will probably roll out something, 50% to some people, half of the people, and another 50% program to half of the people. And you see which one works, basically, right? So as I said, different organizations have different goals, different kinds of workforce. Some of the organizations can have very young workforce. So their needs will be different compared to an organization where, you have a slightly older workforce. Similarly, companies which were mostly where the jobs are mostly sitting jobs, their requirements will be different compared to, say, a construction company, for example, right? So all those things, all those parameters come into place. So I think it's very important to understand what you want, what is your organization or what is your employees want, and then run a employee wellness program.
That's great. It's the common theme and is talk to your employees. It's whether it's a survey or getting out and just actually talking and learning what your employees are interested in. Because if you're going to implement, we're going to go for, implement a jogging program and 90% of your workforce doesn't like to jog. Well, it's not going to work. Or if you're going to go cycling and nobody owns a bike, it's not going to work. So talk to your employees, understand where their stresses are, what's coming up. Ask people, are you moving throughout your day? What does that look like? There's opportunities for setting up a home office with stand-up desks or whatever that looks like, or scheduling breaks, or using programs like Vantage Circle, or another great site is called Checking In, which is all about mental well-being and checking in with yourself. So there's so many opportunities out there as employers, as leaders. We don't wait for necessarily your exec team or HR team to find something to implement. When you lead people, you hold a great responsibility. And so with that, I love it. Like you said, it's plan, set a goal, iterate, A/B test it, and try. If you don't try something, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's going to work. So with that, Anjan, thank you so much for coming on today to talk about employee wellness. It's definitely not a standalone program. It's all tied together with employee engagement, and it leads to employee engagement. So thanks for coming on. For those who are listening, head to peoplemanagingpeople.com to our podcast page. We'll have link to all the show notes, as well as how to reach Anjan. If you have questions, as well as a link to Vantage Circle, please check them out as well. So Anjan, thanks again for coming on.
Sure. Thank you, Tim, for having me.
All right. And again, for those who are listening, please send us your feedback. I always love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, whether it's positive or constructive, whatever it is. You can send me an email at tim@peoplemanagingpeople.com or head to our podcast page, and you can reach us through that as well. So with that, I hope everyone has an amazing day.